This week's constellations are Aquarius and Pisces. I don't have you learn any star names in these constellations, so all you have to learn are the asterisms for these constellations. These are, for the most part, fall constellations for Northern Hemisphere observers, although they are also late-night constellations in the summer. Unfortunately, both of these constellations are also composed of faint stars. Aquarius has only 2 stars brighter than third magnitude, and just barely at that, and the brightest star in Pisces is magnitude 3.6. If you're in a light polluted town, you can't see any of the stars in either constellation. For the most part, the stars are faint because they're far away. Only one of the stars in the asterism for Pisces is closer than 100 light years, and the closest star in the Aquarius asterism is just over 100 light years away. Most of the stars in both asterisms are well over 100 light years away. And it doesn't help that the shapes of the asterisms are kind of weird. Aquarius is associated with water in the Chinese, Indian, and Greek cultures, and this figure is supposed to represent a water jug or something like that. You'll have to use your imagination to spot that. To the east of Aquarius is the constellation of Pisces. The asterism for Pisces is supposed to represent 2 fish on the ends of 2 fishing lines connected at one end. Again, you'll have to use your imagination, especially with the fish part. There are some other constellations in this part of the sky that we can see in this picture. To the west of Aquarius, that would be to the right here, is Capricornus, a good late summer and fall constellation. To the east of Pisces, that's to the left here, is the constellation of Aries, with its less than impressive asterism, just 3 little stars there. The 2 fishing lines of Pisces straddle the corner of what's referred to as the Great Square of Pegasus, the winged horse. The horse is upside down here. I usually spot the Great Square in the sky first and use that to find Pisces. Attached to Pegasus is Andromeda, a favorite fall and winter viewing object. The picture you're seeing here spans quite a large area of the sky. Let's zoom in a little to see these asterisms a little better. This picture shows just Aquarius and Capricornus, and not easy to spot. It may be easiest to spot the dented triangle of Capricornus in the right part of this picture, although I'll bring up the Aquarius asterism first. This really is one of the more challenging asterisms to find in the night sky, at least for me. I can spot Capricornus pretty well, and I always use it to find Aquarius. One part of the Aquarius asterism that does catch my eye is this little group here in the circle that looks like a Mercedes-Benz emblem. It isn't particularly bright, but at least it's a shape I can recognize. And here to the west of Aquarius is Capricornus. And I usually find Capricornus and then find Aquarius based on that. Let's see a little more of the sky around Pisces. See anything familiar? It isn't easy in this picture, although in the top right you may be able to spot the Great Square of Pegasus tilted at an angle. Here's Pisces, the 2 fishing lines holding the fish. And up here is Pegasus, at least the square part of it. You may remember that connected to Pegasus is Andromeda. And just to the east of Pisces is Aries. Finally, also in this part of the sky is the most accurately named constellation asterism in the sky, Triangulum. Now let's have a look at a few deep sky objects in Aquarius. A much photographed object in Aquarius is the Helix Nebula, right here in this part of the sky. Here's a photograph of the Helix taken with a professional telescope. The Helix Nebula is a planetary nebula, one of the nearest such nebulae at about 700 light years away. The nebula is the shell of gas puffed off of an aging star. There are some other deep sky objects in Aquarius, so let's see where they are. Within a fairly small region of the sky at the western end of Aquarius are three objects viewable in a small telescope: the Saturn Nebula, M73, and M72. Let's look at the Saturn Nebula first. Here are a couple of pictures of that. Both of these are a bit more detailed than what you can see through an eyepiece, particularly with regards to the color. Usually with your eye you just see kind of a grayish color. The Saturn Nebula is so named because it has two handles that look a little like the rings of Saturn through small telescopes. It's another planetary nebula, but one that's a few thousand light years away. This distance is uncertain because it hasn't been measured accurately. The star that puffed off the gases is fairly impressive, though. It's a dwarf star with a temperature of about 55,000 Kelvin, roughly 10 times as hot as the Sun. And even though it's probably only about the size of Earth, it puts out about 20 times as much power as our Sun. It puts out a lot of ultraviolet light, and that's what causes the nebula to glow. M72 is a globular cluster, and a fairly massive one. This cluster of stars has about 170,000 times the mass of the Sun. Since the Sun is a larger than average star, there are probably at least that many stars in the cluster, probably on the order of 200,000 stars or more. It's about 55,000 light years away from us. The last object we'll look at may be Messier's least impressive. M73 here was once thought to be an open cluster, just a group of stars that form at about the same time in a large cloud of material. And this cluster consists of only those four bright stars in the middle of the image, but it's not really a cluster. In 2002, some astronomers published a paper describing a careful study of those stars, and it turns out that they're simply a chance alignment of stars at varying distances. They just happen to appear along a line of sight for us in one direction at this time. They're moving in different directions. In a few tens of thousands of years, they'll be widely scattered. And that's it for this week's constellations.